Why is female sexuality so often controlled, criticized, or corrected? Why is it viewed through a lens of suspicion, fear, or even disgust? The answer, like most things concerning women's experiences, lies in the intricate web of cultural messages we've been conditioned to accept as truth. These messages, whispered over generations, have shaped our understanding of women's bodies, desires, and sexual experiences. They've created a narrative that often silences women's voices and denies them agency over their own bodies. This essay will delve into 3 key areas where these cultural messages have manifested most prominently: moral, medical, and media. By understanding how these messages have historically been used to control and define female sexuality, we can begin the crucial work of dismantling them and reclaiming our narratives. We will explore how moral teachings, often rooted in patriarchal structures, have demonized female desire and painted it as a threat to societal order. We will examine how medical perspectives have pathologized women's bodies and experiences, reducing them to diagnoses and treatments. And we will analyze how media portrayals, often unrealistic and hypersexualized, contribute to a culture of shame and inadequacy. It's time to break free from these limiting narratives and redefine female sexuality on our own terms. Throughout history, societal norms have dictated that a woman's value lies in her purity and submissiveness. This ideology, deeply rooted in patriarchal structures, has been reinforced through moral teachings that equate female sexuality with sin and danger. Women's bodies and desires have been framed as threats to male authority, social order, and even spiritual purity. A stark example of this can be found in the writings of James Fordyce, an 18th-century Scottish Presbyterian minister. His sermons, widely circulated among young women of the time, epitomized the prevailing view of female sexuality. Fordyce preached that a woman's primary duty was to be chaste, modest, and subservient to men. He warned against the dangers of female passion, urging women to suppress their desires and prioritize their roles as wives and mothers. Fordyce's teachings, while extreme, were not unique. They reflected a broader cultural anxiety surrounding female sexuality, one that cast women as temptresses who could lead men astray. This fear-driven narrative, perpetuated through religious institutions and societal expectations, has had a lasting impact on how we view female sexuality. The consequences of this historical demonization are still felt today. Women continue to face judgment and shaming for expressing their sexuality openly. They are often held to different standards than men, expected to be both sexually desirable and sexually restrained. This double standard reinforces the idea that female sexuality is something to be controlled and policed, rather than celebrated and embraced. The medical field, often perceived as a bastion of objective science, has not been immune to the influence of cultural biases surrounding female sexuality. Throughout history, women's bodies and experiences have been medicalized and pathologized, their natural desires and functions reinterpreted as symptoms of illness or dysfunction. One of the most striking examples of this is the historical diagnosis and treatment of hysteria. This catch-all diagnosis, derived from the Greek word for uterus, was used to explain a wide range of symptoms in women, from anxiety and insomnia to sexual desire and dissatisfaction. The prevailing medical belief was that a wandering womb or an imbalance of humors was responsible for these ailments. Treatments for hysteria were often as bizarre and invasive as the diagnosis itself. They ranged from pelvic massages and forced vomiting to the use of vibrators, then considered a medical instrument, to induce hysterical paroxysms. These treatments, far from addressing the root causes of women's distress, often serve to further control and suppress their sexuality. The medicalization of female sexuality continues in modern times, albeit in more subtle forms. The pharmaceutical industry markets medications for conditions like female sexual dysfunction, often without addressing the underlying psychological, social, or relational factors that may be contributing to these experiences. While these medications can be helpful for some women, the emphasis on pharmaceutical solutions risks framing female sexuality as a problem to be fixed, rather than a natural and healthy aspect of being human. It's crucial to approach the medicalization of female sexuality with a critical eye, recognizing the ways in which cultural biases and profit motives can influence medical diagnoses and treatments. Women deserve healthcare that is both scientifically sound and culturally sensitive, one that acknowledges the complexity of their experiences and empowers them to make informed decisions about their bodies. The media, in its various forms, serves as a powerful mirror reflecting and reinforcing societal norms and ideals. When it comes to female sexuality, this mirror often presents a distorted and unrealistic image, one that can have a profound impact on women's self-esteem and body image. From magazines and movies to television shows and social media, women are bombarded with images of airbrushed perfection and hypersexualized femininity. The message is clear. To be desirable, women must conform to a narrow standard of beauty that emphasizes youth, thinness, and sexual availability. These unrealistic portrayals of sex and beauty can have detrimental consequences for women's mental and emotional well-being. They contribute to a culture of comparison and self-doubt, where women are constantly measuring themselves against an unattainable ideal. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and even disordered eating. Moreover, the media's focus on a narrow definition of beauty often excludes and marginalizes women who don't fit the mold. Women of color, plus-size women, older women, and women with disabilities are often underrepresented or misrepresented in mainstream media, further reinforcing the idea that their bodies and experiences are somehow less valid or desirable. It's crucial to consume media with a critical eye, recognizing that the images and messages we are exposed to are often carefully constructed to sell products or promote certain ideologies. By challenging unrealistic beauty standards and celebrating diversity in all its forms, we can create a media landscape that is more inclusive, empowering, and reflective of the richness and complexity of women's lives. For too long, the narrative surrounding female sexuality has been dictated by forces outside of women's control. Moral teachings, medical perspectives, and media portrayals have converged to create a culture that often silences, shames, and seeks to control women's bodies and desires. It's time to reclaim this narrative and redefine female sexuality on our own terms. This process begins with awareness. By understanding the historical and cultural forces that have shaped our understanding of female sexuality, we can begin to deconstruct the harmful messages we've internalized. We can challenge the double standards, the unrealistic expectations, and the limiting definitions that have been imposed upon us. It's about embracing our bodies and desires without shame or apology. It's about celebrating the diversity of female experiences and recognizing that there is no one right way to be a woman or to express our sexuality. It's about creating a world where women feel empowered to make choices about their bodies and their lives, free from judgment or coercion. This is not just about individual liberation, it's about societal transformation. When we challenge the status quo and demand better for ourselves and for future generations, we create a ripple effect that can lead to greater equality and justice for all. Let's continue to question, to challenge, and to create. Let's reclaim our bodies, our desires, and our narratives. Let's redefine female sexuality as a source of power, pleasure, and liberation.